Hello. Today we will talk about the daily life of a brothel keeper in a medieval city, a woman who is forced every day to fight for the survival of herself and her girls, facing sickness, hunger, bribes, rumors, and dangers lurking at every turn. This is a story about an endless cycle of routine where instead of hope and justice, there is only exhaustion, resignation, and a daily struggle against a city that never lets you breathe freely. But before you get comfortable, please like this video and subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. It's always interesting to see who has joined us. Now make yourself comfortable. We're starting. You wake up before the city does. In the unlit, smoky air of your room, every breath tastes of yesterday's grease and centuries of dust. The ceiling is so low that you have long since stopped standing up straight. In these hours, there are no dreams left, only the dull ache in your back and the familiar clamminess of the blankets, half damp from the ceaseless fog that creeps in from the river and settles over everything like a sour blessing. You, a brothel keeper, are not the sort of person who belongs in stories. Your name has faded from use, even in your own head. You have become madam, and sometimes old woman, although you are not yet old by the standards of kings and saints, only by those of your girls. 10 years in this business, and already you walk like someone twice your age. Here, in the so-called heart of the city, you are closer to the tanners and butchers than to the cathedral or the manor, and this, you realize, is not a coincidence. The day's first duty is inventory, always inventory. In the half dark, you count loaves of stale bread and the cracked crockery, the chipped jugs with just enough cheap wine to rot the gums. You check that none of the girls have snuck an extra cup, that none have tucked away a spoonful of fat under the rushes for later. In this place, every scrap matters. You count coins, the few silver pennies and handful of copper farthings, hidden in a rusted pot behind the hearth, wrapped in an old rag so thin you can see your future through it. The girls are already stirring, their voices a muted grumble. You listen as they whisper about last night's clients, about whose hands were roughest, whose breath stank of onions, whose purse was lightest. These complaints are the same every morning, as certain as sunrise and rain. Even the youngest, she cannot be more than 12 years old, though you have stopped asking, has learned how to complain like a woman twice her age. You wonder, as you do every morning, if today will be any different. It will not be. In the kitchen, the air is thick with the remnants of last night's meal and the ever-present mildew. Your cook, a toothless crone who spits into the pot when she thinks you are not watching, boils water for the gruel. The girls gather around the table, clutching their bowls as if expecting something more than the gray, gluey paste they receive. A scrap of last night's bread, already hardening into stone, is passed from hand to hand. No one wastes food here. Even the mold is scraped off and eaten by the bravest. You supervise the first chore of the day, cleaning. The girls who are too young, too sick, or too old for the night's business are put to work scrubbing the floors with water fetched from the city well, which is nearly as filthy as the streets. Each bucket is heavy, cold, and possibly contaminated, but you can do nothing about that. You have heard stories about people vanishing into wells, bodies discovered months later, gnawed by rats and worms, but these are not the stories you allow yourself to dwell on. Your job is to keep everyone alive, at least until the next market day. You check the beds for lice, for fleas, for stains that must be scrubbed out before the customers return. There is no end to this labor. The brooms are little more than twigs. The soap is lard and ashes. One girl, the oldest by far, coughs in the corner, a rag pressed to her lips. You notice the spots of blood on the cloth, but say nothing. Last winter, you lost two girls to fever. This year, you can only hope for better luck. As daylight seeps through the cracks in the shutters, the city outside begins to wake up too. You hear the calls of market vendors, the distant clang of a blacksmith, the curses of fishermen hauling their nets. Soon the first visitors will appear, not customers, but the city's other scavengers, tax collectors, patrolmen, and ragged boys offering news or threats or secrets for sale. Each expects a coin or a favor, and you, like every brothel keeper before you, pay them all, because the price for being left alone is always less than the price for being noticed. You remember a time, years ago, when you thought this business was an escape. You were young, clever, certain you could outwit the world. Now you see how little room there is for cleverness, how every plan is undone by bad luck or someone else's hunger. There is no glamour here, no velvet or lace. The closest you come to riches is the rare night when no one vomits on the stairs and no one steals the candles. By noon, your legs ache and your mind is already numb. You catch yourself wondering, as you always do, how long you will last. Not how long you will keep the brothel, but how long you will keep yourself. The city never changes, only your place in it grows smaller each year. The girls come and go, the walls close in, inch by inch. The world outside is as cold as your kitchen and just as unforgiving. You close your eyes for a moment. The next moment, you hear shouts from the hallway. Someone has spilled water, someone else is shouting about lice, and a third voice demands your judgment in a quarrel over a blanket. You push yourself up with a groan and go to settle the dispute, already knowing it will not be the last today. This is how the day begins. It will end much the same, and tomorrow you will do it all again. You move through the house like a ghost with sore feet, clutching your worn apron and muttering silent curses to yourself. The sun has not yet shown itself, but the city is already stirring, and your business, for all its infamy, cannot afford laziness. The boards creak under your step. Each sound is as familiar to you as your own heartbeat. Each loose nail, each sag in the floor, a silent marker of time spent, hopes deferred. The morning inspection is not glamorous, but it is necessary. You start with the front room, where the air is thick with old perfume and something sharper, perhaps the memory of spilled ale or a customer's unwashed feet. One of the girls, the youngest, is curled up on the bench, half asleep, her head buried under a dirty shawl. You nudge her awake with the toe of your boot, reminding her that there is always work to be done, and sleep is a luxury few can afford. You check the windows, which do not open fully, and note the buildup of grime between the wooden slats. Outside, the street is already muddy, lined with puddles from last night's rain. The city does not care about the state of your windows. It does not care about you at all. Still, you scrape away at the worst of the filth, using a rag that is more whole than cloth. Next, you pass through the narrow hallway, where the plaster peels in long, curling strips, and the air stinks of chamber pots. There is a sound, low, persistent coughing, from the room at the end of the hall. You know that cough. It belongs to Hilda, the oldest of your girls, who has been with you nearly as long as you have owned the house. Hilda's lungs have always been weak, but this year she sounds worse than ever. When you open the door, you find her sitting on the edge of her straw mattress, red-eyed and shivering, a battered blanket pulled around her thin shoulders. You press a hand to her forehead and feel the heat burning there. Fever. Again, in the weak morning light, you can see the sweat beading on her skin and the tremor in her hands. There are no doctors for people like you, only old wives' remedies, and the hope that this time the sickness will pass without claiming another girl. You tell her to rest, to drink the thin broth left from last night, and promise to bring her a slice of bread if there is any left after breakfast. Hilda gives you a grateful look, and you turn away before the weight of her need can settle too heavily on your heart. There are always more rooms to check. The sheets must be inspected for stains, the beds for vermin. You peel back a blanket, and a family of fleas scatters in all directions. With a tired sigh, you order one of the younger girls to fetch a bucket of water from the well. She protests. Her feet are cold. The street is slippery. The well is too far. You tell her the same thing you always do. Life is full of things that are too far, too cold, and too dirty, and no one cares about your complaints. As the girl leaves, you remember another time, another girl, yourself, perhaps, though you no longer admit it, braving the chill for a pail of water and a crust of bread. You wonder how much has changed since then. Not enough. In the storeroom, you take a mental inventory of what little is left. A few hunks of hard cheese, some shriveled apples, a sack of onions, already beginning to rot. There is a single jug of wine, half empty, the color of dried blood. You consider watering it down to make it last, but you know the girls will notice, and you need them at least slightly placated if you want the day to pass without incident. You discover a broken mug on the shelf, a fresh break, its jagged edge gleaming in the light. Someone must have dropped it in the night and hidden the evidence. You do not bother to ask who. You know that, here, guilt is always shared. Instead, you sweep the shards into a pile and tuck them into a rag, adding them to the growing list of things that must be mended, replaced, or simply endured. Back in the kitchen, the cook is scraping burnt porridge from the bottom of the pot. She grumbles that the firewood is damp, the oats are full of weevils, and the milk has gone sour. You nod and say nothing because none of these things are within your power to fix. The food will be eaten, the girls will complain, and the world will not change for either of you. As the morning passes, the small irritations pile up. The girls quarrel over blankets, over a stolen ribbon, over whose turn it is to scrub the privy. You resolve each dispute with the same tired authority you have wielded for years, a sharp word, a threat to turn someone out onto the street, and the unspoken knowledge that, for all their grumbling, none of them has anywhere else to go. You take a moment to wash your hands in a chipped basin, watching as the water turns gray with dirt and old blood. There is no soap left, only ashes mixed with lye, but you use it anyway, scrubbing until your knuckles sting. The ritual is meaningless, but it gives you a sense of control in a world where nothing is truly clean. By the time the bells from the nearby chapel begin to ring, signaling the start of another day in the city, you have finished your rounds. The house is not clean, but it is as clean as it will ever be. The girls are fed, if not satisfied. The rooms are ready, if not inviting. You allow yourself a moment's rest, sitting on a crooked stool by the door, your eyes drifting closed. The moment does not last. There is always more to do. The first clients will arrive soon, and you must greet them with a smile, or at least a semblance of one. You smooth your dress, pin up your hair, and prepare yourself for another day of survival in a world that does not care if you live or die. And so, the morning inspection ends, and the day truly begins. You barely have time to straighten your skirt when the door rattles beneath a fist. 3 sharp knocks, then 2 more, the rhythm unmistakable. You do not need to look to know who stands on the other side. No one else knocks with such practiced entitlement. No one else waits so little before trying the latch for themselves. The tax collector, who is not called by his name, but rather by his function, as if he were as inevitable as rain or death. He enters before you answer, his boots leaving prints in the filth on the threshold. He does not remove his hat. The room grows colder, as if the city's own greed has seeped in with him. The girls, trained by long experience, scatter like rats before a shovel, vanishing behind curtains, up stairways, through the kitchen door. You do not blame them. There are dangers that come with a smile and a heavy purse, and then there are dangers like this, sharp-eyed, thick-fingered, carrying a ledger thicker than a prayer book and a knife never far from his belt. He looks around, lips curling in disdain at your meager efforts to keep the place tidy. The air between you is thick with unspoken rules, each of you knowing precisely what to expect and precisely how little will be gained by protest. He begins his inspection not with questions, but with slow, deliberate steps, glancing over your ledgers, the empty cups, the fading hangings on the wall. He does not bother to hide his contempt. Business good? He asks, voice oily, as he thumbs through a record you know is half true and half wishful thinking. It is not a real question. He knows the answer before he enters, and you both know that the numbers matter less than the sum he has already decided to collect. You say what you must, words chosen with the careful blandness that comes from years of negotiation. We do our best, you reply, as best as any in this quarter. You add a smile, the kind that means nothing at all. He grunts, dissatisfied, and taps a line in the ledger with his dirty fingernail. Some are saying you had more customers last week than you reported. The implication is clear. Honesty is expensive, and lies cost even more. You feel the old frustration rise, thick and bitter. You cannot argue, not truly. He holds the power, and you, for all your authority over this small kingdom of yours, are as bound as any servant. You reach beneath the counter, feeling for the small purse hidden in the folds of a rag. Every coin is a calculation. How much you must surrender to buy another week's peace, how much you must keep to buy food, wood, and the services of the midwife when your girls fall ill. He names a sum, and it is more than last time. He is bold this year. Perhaps there are new demands higher up the chain, or perhaps he knows you are too tired to fight. You protest mildly, invoking the slow business of the winter and the city's new curfew. He only raises an eyebrow, as if daring you to continue. You try bargaining, a performance as ancient as the city itself. You offer a smaller sum, the same one you paid last month. You plead the sickness in the house, the debts owed for firewood and flour. He listens with the blank patience of a man who knows the outcome will not change, then shakes his head. It is not for me, he says, voice hardening. It is for the city. You would not want trouble, would you? Trouble. The word hangs in the air like smoke. Trouble can mean fines, can mean the closing of doors, can mean the city watch banging at your shutters in the night. Trouble can mean worse. You count out the coins, one by one, each one dull and heavy with loss. His eyes flicker with satisfaction as the sum grows, and he makes no effort to hide his hunger as he pockets the purse. He does not bother to count. He knows you are not fool enough to cheat him. Still, he lingers, letting you feel his presence a moment longer, a reminder that there will always be another collection, another hand outstretched. When he finally turns to go, he pauses in the doorway, surveying your house one last time. Keep it clean, he says, the order delivered as if cleanliness were not a luxury, but a duty. And keep your girls quiet. There have been complaints. He does not specify what kind of complaints or from whom. It does not matter. You nod, promising what you must, and watch as he disappears into the wet, gray street, his boots already muddy with the filth of your doorstep. The girls drift back from their hiding places, faces pale and tight lipped. You try to reassure them, but your words are flat, the comfort gone before it is spoken. You wonder, as you gather the last of your coins and hide them away again, how much longer you can pay for peace, how many more visits you can survive before there is nothing left to give. It is not even midday, and already you are exhausted. The tax collector's departure leaves the house quieter, but not peaceful. The girls return to their chores, shoulders tense, voices low. You can feel the aftertaste of that visit lingering in every corner, in every uneasy glance exchanged across the kitchen. The purse you handed over was not full, but it was heavy with the weight of everything you had to surrender. Already, you are making mental notes of which debts can wait, which mouths can be fed with less. Outside, the wind rattles the shutters and carries the smell of the street, muck and manure and the sour reek of tanneries. You send the youngest. Her name is Elsa, but the girls call her Mouse, to fetch water from the well. She grumbles, pulls on her thin shoes, wraps herself in a shawl, and slips out the door. You remind her to be careful with the bucket. It is the only one with a handle that has not yet rotted through. You turn your attention to the hearth. The cook is already arguing with another girl about the bread, who ate the last slice, who left crumbs, who is to blame for the mice in the flour bin. There are always mice, and always someone to blame. You have stopped listening to the details. You scrape together enough crumbs to thicken the soup, knowing it will not be enough for anyone to leave the table satisfied. Hunger is a permanent tenant in your house, more constant than any girl or customer. From the alley comes a sudden crash and a shriek. You hurry outside, feet sinking in the sticky mud, heart pounding with the familiar mixture of fear and irritation. At the well, you find Elsa on her knees, tears already streaking her dirty cheeks. The bucket is nowhere in sight. She points, speechless, at the open mouth of the well. You peer in, squinting into the gloom. There, far below, you see the faintest glint of iron, a dark shape bobbing in the stagnant water. The bucket, lost. You bite back the urge to shout. It would do no good. Accidents happen, and Elsa is only a child, though already older than her years. Other girls gather around, drawn by the noise. They offer advice, some helpful, most mocking. One suggests climbing down after it, as if the walls of the well were not slick with centuries of slime. Another suggests tying a rope around Elsa and lowering her by the ankles, which earns a round of nervous laughter. You silence them with a look. The loss of the bucket is more than inconvenience. There is no spare, and the cooper's prices have doubled since the last bad harvest. Water will now have to be carried in a cracked pail, leaking at the seams, twice as many trips for half as much water. You do the calculations in your head. How many extra hours this will mean? How many more chances for the girls to slip, to fall, to be noticed by the wrong sort of passerby? You send Elsa inside, her sobs echoing in the alley, and take a moment to steady yourself by the well. You remember, briefly, your own first year in the city, how you hated this well, hated the way it seemed to swallow light and hope and laughter, how you had once dropped your mother's brooch into its depths, watching the silver vanish with a soft splash, and how your mother had never forgiven you. You realize you are staring too long into the darkness. The girls are waiting, uneasy, unsure if punishment will fall on Elsa, or on them, or on you. You sigh, rub your aching temples, and tell them all to get back to work. The day is only half spent, and already you feel every year of your age pressing down on your spine. Inside, the talk is all about the well. The girls argue about whose turn it is next, who is luckier, who is cleverer. Superstition runs strong here. Some mutter that the well is cursed, that bad luck will follow the loss of a bucket, that someone must make an offering to appease whatever spirit dwells below. You let them talk. If they are busy with their stories, they are less likely to notice how thin the soup is, how little bread is left, how the house seems smaller every day. You sit by the window, mending a torn shift, and listen to their chatter. The city moves outside your window, vendors shouting, carts rattling, children screaming and laughing in the mud. Sometimes you wonder what it would be like to walk away from all this, to leave the house, the girls, the debts, and vanish into the city's maze of alleys, becoming just another nameless face among thousands. But you know such thoughts are pointless. The house owns you as much as you own it. By evening, Elsa's tears have dried, replaced by sullen silence. The girls avoid her, blaming her quietly for the extra work, for the extra risk. You try to reassure her, but your words sound hollow, even to yourself. There are no new buckets, no money for repairs, no miracles waiting at the well's bottom. You count out the coins remaining, each one a reminder of what you have lost today and what you will lose tomorrow. Outside, the sky is darkening. The city grows colder, and your house, never warm to begin with, seems to shrink a little more with every passing day. At supper, there are no stories, only silence and the scrape of spoons on wooden bowls. Elsa eats without looking up. The others glance at you, waiting to see if there will be punishment or forgiveness. You offer neither. The well is just another wound, one more scar in a life already full of them. After supper, you lock the door, bar the shutters, and make your way to bed. The mattress sags beneath you, and you stare at the low, smoky ceiling, listening to the distant drip of water from the roof. In your mind, the well yawns wide, a hungry mouth that never fills, swallowing everything you cannot afford to lose. You sleep lightly, dreaming of water, of lost buckets, of the endless weight of things falling where you cannot reach them. The morning's disasters blend into the gray afternoon as the city comes alive with the clamor of trade. The market is in full swing outside your door. Vendors hawk onions, eggs, black bread, salt fish, their voices a rising, falling chorus, punctuated by the bellows of pigs and the squawk of chickens that no one seems able to silence. You smell cabbage and dung, wet wool and old urine. Somewhere, someone is boiling bones, the greasy scent mixing with the sharper reek of smoke from the blacksmith's forge. You know these sounds and smells intimately. You know the rhythms of the market, too. The way the merchants drift in from their stalls at midday, pockets heavy with small coins, spirits lightened by ale or the meager triumph of a bargain struck. These are not men of poetry or chivalry. These are men with dirt beneath their fingernails, hands rough from rope and barrel, faces lined by wind and hunger and cheap drink. Some you recognize, regulars, men who pay with coins sticky from being clenched in a nervous palm. Others are new, their eyes quick to roam the room, their voices loud and forced. The first customer of the day is a butcher, his apron crusted with blood, a purple thumb poking from a torn glove. He pushes the door open with his shoulder and stands in the entrance, dripping rain and the smell of slaughter. He grins, revealing a gap where his front teeth once were, and demands his usual girl. She is not available, still sleeping off a fever or hiding in the attic. You do not care which, so you send another, a girl with the sharp elbows and quicker tongue. She hesitates at first, but knows better than to argue in front of you. She leads him upstairs, her steps slow and heavy. More men follow. A fishmonger, cheeks flushed red from wind and drink, jokes loudly with the others as he waits his turn. He leaves muddy footprints all the way to the back room, swearing when he slips. Two farmhands come in together, shoving each other and laughing too hard until you snap at them to mind their manners. They slouch off to a corner, pretending not to be afraid of you. The girls know the drill. They smooth their hair, adjust their bodices, bite their lips to bring color to their cheeks. Some flirt, some scowl, some close their eyes and let the world pass by. You have seen every variation of resignation and resistance, every mask a woman can wear. No one chooses this life, you remind yourself, but you make do with the life you have. You keep a careful watch on the coins. Every transaction is a negotiation. How much, for how long, and for what? You take your cut from each, never enough to cover what the taxman took, never enough to fix the roof, but enough to get by for now. The men rarely complain about your prices. They know what they are buying and what it costs elsewhere. You know, too, what it costs your girls, though you have learned to count pain in quieter ways. Sometimes there is trouble. Today, a man tries to slip out without paying, his boots leaving smears of manure across your floor. You catch him by the arm, your fingers digging into flesh. He glares at you, and for a moment you see the animal behind the eyes, a flash of something ugly, dangerous, but you do not flinch. You have seen worse, survived worse. You hold out your hand and say nothing. He curses, spits, but drops a coin into your palm before leaving, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the hinges. There is always someone who leaves angry. Sometimes it is a customer, sometimes it is a girl. This time, it is the sharp elbowed girl, the one you sent to the butcher. She returns with a bruise blossoming on her cheek, her eyes bright with tears she refuses to shed. She says nothing, just disappears into the kitchen, head bowed. The other girls watch her, watch you, gauging your response. You know there is nothing you can say or do. The city runs on bruises. Most are never mentioned, never counted, never healed. Later, you find her sitting by the cold stove, rubbing her face. You offer her a scrap of clean cloth and a little vinegar for the swelling. She takes it without thanks. She is angry, and you do not blame her. You sit together in silence, listening to the muffled sounds from upstairs, the creak of beds, the laughter of men who know they will not remember your names or hers tomorrow. The day drags on. You tally your takings, noting each transaction with a scratch of charcoal on a scrap of wood. The coins look smaller every week, their weight less and less. The cost of bread, of candles, of soap, all rising, all gnawing at the edges of what you can provide. You try not to think too much about what will happen if you cannot make up the difference. As evening approaches, the market outside fades, replaced by the steady march of laborers heading home. The customers change too. Now come the carters, the dock hands, the men whose work leaves them too tired for much more than a drink and a warm place to forget the day. Your house is never empty, never quiet, never clean. It is a machine for turning pain into pennies, hunger into hours survived. At supper, the girls eat in silence, eyes hollow, shoulders tight. The sharp elbowed girl dabs at her cheek, wincing. No one mentions the bruise. No one mentions the missing bucket, or the tax collector, or the soup so thin it barely qualifies as food. There is nothing to say that has not already been said 1,000 times. You fall asleep that night listening to the drip of water from the roof, the scrape of rats behind the walls, and the quiet, hopeless sound of someone weeping in the dark. This is life, you tell yourself, a procession of small indignities, endured because there is no alternative, endured because the world does not care how many times you fall, only that you get up day after day to do it all again. The season turns colder. Nights come earlier, and the damp settles in your bones like a curse. The girls move more slowly now, shivering in corners where the wind sneaks through cracks in the walls. You wake each morning to the sound of coughing, a chorus that seems to grow louder and more desperate with each passing day. It starts with Hilda, as you knew it would. Hilda has always been sickly, her lungs ruined by years of bad air, cheap gin, and the sort of work that leaves a woman's body broken long before her hair turns gray. Her fever comes and goes, rising in the night, breaking at dawn, leaving her soaked in sweat and too weak to rise from her straw pallet. She tries to help in the kitchen, to sweep the floor, to do anything that will keep her from being noticed, but the effort leaves her doubled over, gasping, red eyed, and ashamed. You bring her weak tea laced with vinegar, an old remedy passed from one desperate woman to another. It does little good. She thanks you with a thin smile and tries to hide her trembling hands. You know she is frightened, but pride keeps her silent. You tell her to rest, but rest is a luxury in short supply here. There are always chores, always clients, always another night to survive. Then Greta, the pale girl with the burn scar on her arm, begins to cough. At first, it is nothing, a tickle in her throat, a quick clearing after laughing too hard at supper, but soon the cough deepens, dry and hard, echoing through the thin walls of the sleeping room. She tries to muffle it with her sleeve, but the sound carries, drawing worried glances from the other girls. Rumors begin to spread, as they always do. Someone remembers the winter 3 years ago when two girls died within a fortnight. Someone else claims to have seen rats in the cellar, black as midnight, their bellies swollen. The words plague and curse are whispered behind cupped hands, followed by superstitious gestures and prayers half remembered from childhood. You hear these stories, but do not bother to silence them. Fear, you know, can be a kind of comfort. At least it gives shape to the uncertainty. You watch the girls more closely now. You count their coughs, note the flushed cheeks, the sudden chills. You notice the way they glance at each other over supper, suspicion lurking in every sidelong look. Some begin to sleep with scarves wrapped around their faces. A few ask for permission to burn extra tallow candles, claiming the smoke will drive away evil spirits. You grant their request, though you know it is the cold, the hunger, the filth that breeds sickness here, not spirits or curses. Clients are the first to sense the change, though they cannot name it. Some wrinkle their noses at the stale air, ask for fresh straw, demand that the girls wash more thoroughly. You reassure them with practiced lies. It is just a cold, you say, nothing serious, nothing to worry about. You need their coins, now more than ever, to buy vinegar, onions, and the bitter herbs that the old women sell at the market for protection against fevers. The worst part is not the sickness itself, but the uncertainty. Every ache, every shiver, every missed step feels like an omen. You remember too well the terror of past winters, the way neighbors sealed their doors with pitch and chalk, the quiet funerals held at dawn for those whose luck ran out. You have buried enough girls to know the cost of hope. One night, as you count the day's meager takings by the hearth, you hear a fit of coughing from the sleeping room that does not end. You find Greta hunched over, arms wrapped around her knees, tears streaking her face. Hilda sits beside her, rubbing her back with a rough motherly hand. The other girls keep their distance, faces tight with fear and something colder, resentment perhaps, or simple self preservation. You promise Greta that she will feel better soon, that the cough will pass. She nods, but you can see that she does not believe you. Neither do you, not really. The next morning, one of the regular clients, a barrel maker with gray stubble and rheumy eyes, refuses to enter the house. He stands outside in the mud, shouting for his favorite girl to come out to him. You send her, watching as she pulls her shawl tighter, glancing back at you for reassurance. You give her none. Every client matters now. Every coin is a shield against hunger, against eviction, against the world. Afterward, she comes back pale and shaking. She says nothing, but you see her slip a crust of bread to Greta as she passes through the kitchen. Acts of kindness are rare and often regretted in this place, but you pretend not to notice. You are grateful for any spark of humanity. Days pass in a slow blur. The girls who are well enough work harder to cover for the sick. Tempers fray. Quarrels break out over nothing at all. A stolen comb, a torn shift, a careless word. The air is thick with tension, and you find yourself snapping at everyone, even the cook, who is the only one brave enough to argue back. At night, you lie awake, listening to the coughing, to the scratch of rats in the walls, to the distant howl of the city beyond your door. You pray, though you no longer know to whom, that the sickness will break, that no more girls will fall. You promise yourself that if you can make it through this winter, you will save more, plan better, make changes. But in your heart, you know that promises are as cheap as breath in this house and just as easily spent. By week's end, another girl begins to cough. The others edge away from her at supper, and the fear in their eyes grows sharp as knives. The days are shorter now, and the light in the house seems thinner, as if the world itself is shrinking. Night arrives early and without ceremony. The candles burn down to stubs, their flickering light casting long, uncertain shadows on the walls. You feel each hour stretch, heavy and thin as watered gruel. The city outside never truly sleeps. Somewhere in the alley, a dog howls. Footsteps squelch through mud. Distant shouts drift in, punctuated by the ringing of a bell, a fire, a fight, a warning. All of it is none of your business unless it becomes your problem. Inside, the girls settle uneasily into their routines. The sick cough quietly in their beds, while the healthy keep to themselves, wary of both contagion and one another. You can almost taste the unease. It is more than sickness now. It is hunger, exhaustion, and fear, wound tight as a knotted rope. The girls bicker over blankets and corner space, over who must rise first in the morning to fetch water or sweep out the ash from the hearth. You make your rounds through the house, checking the bolts on every door and window. You listen at the sleeping room, counting breaths, the occasional sigh or groan. Once you hear muffled laughter, quick and mean, then silence. The air is so thick it feels like you are breathing through wet cloth. You cannot sleep, not yet. Too much is left undone. You sit at the kitchen table, scraping a stub of charcoal across a piece of wood, calculating what little you have left. 3 loaves of bread, already hard. Half a sack of onions, sprouting green from neglect. A wedge of cheese that is more rind than nourishment. Your mind turns to the purse of coins hidden in the stove. You count it again, though you already know it by heart. It is less than you need, less than you hoped. There is a sound from the pantry, a soft clink, then the unmistakable shuffle of feet. You rise quietly, careful not to alert whoever is there. The door creaks open, and you catch sight of a shadow slipping back into the corridor. For a heartbeat, you consider letting it go, but you cannot afford such luxury. Food is too precious for leniency. You follow the shadow. In the dim light, you see Elsa, her arms wrapped tight around her thin body, a crust of bread clutched in one fist. She stares at you, wide-eyed, defiant and frightened all at once. You do not shout. There is no point. Instead, you take the bread from her hand, break it in two, and return half. Next time, you say, voice flat, you ask first. She nods, shame and relief mingling in her eyes, and disappears into the dark. You are not angry. How could you be? Hunger has a logic that no rule or punishment can overcome. But you make a note to lock the pantry from now on, even as you know locks are little comfort in a house full of desperation. The rest of the night drags. You lie in your bed, listening to the shifting of straw, the coughs and whispers, the scurrying of rats behind the wainscot. You cannot sleep. Your mind is a millstone, grinding through every worry, sickness, hunger, the cost of candles, the city's endless demands. At some point, you drift off, only to wake again to footsteps in the hall. You rise, gather your shawl, and step out into the cold corridor. A pale light filters through the window, illuminating the girls curled on their pallets, bundled together for warmth. One is missing, Greta. You find her hunched by the hearth, coughing so hard her whole body shakes. You fetch her water, watch as she sips, then sits in silence, staring into the ashes. She does not want comfort. She wants only for the coughing to stop. You offer a few words, a promise that she will feel better soon. She does not answer. After a while, She shuffles back to bed. You know you should return to sleep, but rest feels like theft, time stolen from your endless duties. Instead, you pace the house, checking the doors again, listening for trouble. The city outside quiets a little, though the wind continues to moan around the eaves, a mournful sound that sets your teeth on edge. The fire dies to embers. The cold seeps in, curling around your ankles, nestling in your bones. You wrap yourself tighter in your shawl, staring into the dark. In this place, security is a lie, a word from richer mouths, spoken behind thicker doors. Sometime before dawn, you finally lie down, your body aching, your mind restless. You dream of the pantry, of bread multiplying or shrinking to crumbs, no matter how you count it. When you wake, you do not remember the dream, only the feeling that nothing will ever be enough. Dawn comes gray and thin. The girls stir, already whispering about the missing bread, the cold, the latest quarrel. No one mentions the theft, but all of them know. You hand out the morning rations, smaller than usual, but no one complains. Hunger has a way of teaching silence. Another day begins, and you force yourself upright, hands already reaching for the ledger, mind already tallying debts. You tell yourself that you can survive another night, and perhaps another after that. There is nothing else to do. This is the rhythm of your world, a dance of suspicion, need, and small mercies, repeated in darkness and light, night after night, without end. The cold has deepened, pressing against the windows like a persistent creditor. Morning brings a gray drizzle and a mood even grayer. The girls eat their porridge in silence, spoons scraping the bottom of the pot, faces drawn with worry and fatigue. Someone coughs. No one looks up. There is a sense of waiting in the air, waiting for something to change, for something to break, for the thread to finally snap. You are making your rounds, counting blankets and bowls, when you hear a knock at the door. Not the hurried, nervous tapping of a shy client, nor the arrogant pounding of the tax collector or city guard. This is a quiet, uncertain knock. 3 taps, then a pause, then one more, as if the knocker is asking permission to exist. You open the door to find a girl no older than 16, soaked to the bone and shivering in a thin dress that has seen too many seasons. She clutches a bundle of rags to her chest, and you realize, with a slow dread, that the bundle is all she owns in the world. Her eyes are red rimmed but determined, the look of someone who has run out of places to hide. I need work, she says. Her voice is steady, but you can hear the tremor beneath the words. Anything, please. Behind her, the rain follows in sheets, washing the filth from the alley, only to reveal the stones beneath. You hesitate, measuring her the way you measure every new arrival. She is too thin, too pale, but not yet broken. The other girls appear in the hall behind you, drawn by curiosity and the scent of new blood. They whisper among themselves, sizing up the newcomer, their eyes narrow and cold. In this house, every extra mouth means less to eat, another rival for the grudging kindness of clients, another set of secrets to keep. You let her inside. You do not ask her name yet. Names can wait. Instead, you give her a cup of weak tea and a place by the fire. She sits in silence, shivering, hands wrapped around the cup as if it might warm more than just her fingers. Later, you lead her upstairs to the dormitory. The girls make room for her with the minimum of courtesy, shifting over but not speaking. Hilda, coughing in her corner, gives the newcomer a look that is almost sympathetic, but even that quickly fades. No one wants to grow attached. Attachment leads to pain, and pain is something everyone here already knows too well. You give her a spare dress, patched, but warmer than what she wore in from the rain. She thanks you, voice barely above a whisper. When you ask where she has come from, she tells you a story as old as the city, her family dead, her options gone, her welcome worn out everywhere else. There is nothing unusual in her tale. You have heard it 100 times from 100 mouths, each with its own minor variations. Hunger, loss, shame. These are the currency of survival. As the day goes on, the girls watch her with the wary interest of street cats eyeing a stranger on their patch. Some are openly hostile, muttering about how thin the soup already is, how crowded the beds, how much more work there will be. Others simply ignore her, choosing silence over confrontation. Only Elsa, herself not long out of childhood, offers a tentative smile. The new girl smiles back, but it is a brittle, uncertain thing. You assign her to chores, the kind of tasks that require more endurance than skill. She scrubs floors, hauls water in the cracked bucket, helps the cook peel potatoes. She works hard and without complaint, though you see the exhaustion in her shoulders, the way she winces when she bends. At supper, you offer her an extra scrap of bread. She eats quickly, eyes lowered, careful not to draw attention. When evening comes, you pull her aside. If you stay, you tell her, you work. You do not steal. You do not cause trouble. You do not make promises you cannot keep. She nods, silent and wary, and you see in her face a reflection of all the others who have come through your door, hope mixed with desperation, the brief flare of relief already shadowed by doubt. The clients take notice, as clients always do. The regulars are curious, some with interest, others with suspicion. A few try to engage her in clumsy conversation. She recoils, too new, too raw, not yet able to slip into the mask required by this trade. You shield her for now, assigning her only the safest, least demanding tasks. Some of the girls grumble, but you ignore them. The world will be hard enough on her soon enough. Late that night, you find her sitting at the edge of her cot, staring out the tiny, dirty window. She does not notice you at first. When she does, she startles, then tries to smile. Thank you, she says quietly, for letting me in. You do not answer. You know that kindness in this place is always transactional, always weighted by what must be endured tomorrow. Instead, you tell her to get some sleep and close the door behind you. The girls shift in their beds, making room and not making room, sharing warmth and not sharing comfort. The fire burns low, and the wind howls through the cracks in the shutters. Somewhere in the house, someone coughs, and someone else sighs. You return to your own room, the new girl's gratitude lingering in your ears like the echo of a song you used to know. You know the truth. No one is saved in a house like this. Not really. Some simply last longer than others. In the silence, you promise yourself you will watch over her, but you know how such promises fare here. They are as thin as the broth, as fleeting as the warmth of a borrowed blanket. Tomorrow will be no different. Morning begins with rain, not heavy enough to wash the filth from the stones, but enough to turn every lane into a ribbon of mud. The market outside is quieter today. The vendors huddle under canvas awnings, their voices muffled and resentful. You hear the usual litany: salted fish, spoiled apples, cabbage old enough to sprout legs and walk away. But underneath is another voice, a note of tension you cannot place. Inside your house, the air is heavy. The new girl, whose name you still have not asked, scrubs the floors with a diligence that borders on desperation. Hilda sits nearby, coughing into a rag. The others whisper behind cupped hands, glancing at the window, glancing at you, glancing at the door. It is Elsa who brings the first sign. She slips into the kitchen as you count out the last of the flour. Her eyes are wide, her hair damp from the rain. They are talking about us, she says, voice pitched low. Out in the market, they say there is sickness here and worse. She hesitates, shifting from foot to foot. They say the baker's son saw one of our girls coughing blood. You stare at her, silent. There is nothing new in such gossip, but this time the fear in Elsa's face is real. The city is a hungry animal, always searching for someone to blame. You thank her and send her back to her chores, already calculating what this will mean for you and the girls. By midday, the whispers have grown. The ragged boys who run errands for pennies stop coming by. The butcher, normally one of your first customers, glances up at your door but does not enter. Even the old woman who sells onions at the corner crosses herself as you walk past. The city is closing ranks, the way it always does when fear outweighs curiosity. At supper, you speak plainly to the girls. There are rumors in the market. Be careful what you say. Be careful who you speak to. Your words hang in the air, heavy as lead. Some of the girls scoff. People are always talking, one mutters. Another, sharper, says, let them talk. We have nothing to hide. But the unease is there, threading its way through every gesture, every look. You send Elsa out the next morning to listen. She returns, shivering and tight lipped. They are saying you poison your girls, that the bread is bad, that you keep dead bodies in the cellar. The last part makes you laugh, bitter and sharp, but it dies quickly. Lies have a way of turning into truths when enough people repeat them. That afternoon, a city guard stops outside your door. He does not enter, but his presence is enough. A warning, a promise. The girls go silent. Even the new girl, still learning the ways of this world, understands the danger in an official's shadow. You call your oldest girl, Hilda, and send her to the apothecary for vinegar and dried herbs. You tell her to be polite, to pay in advance, to say nothing unnecessary. When she returns, she carries the goods and a message. The apothecary says not to bring sick girls near his shop again. He says the city council is watching this street. That night, the air inside the house is thick with dread. The girls huddle together, whispering about what they have heard. They will close us down, one says. They will burn the house, drive us out, send us to the river. Another snaps. Let them try. Where will they get their fun then? You say nothing. You are too tired for false hope, too old for empty threats. You remember the last time the city turned on its own, the winter of the pox, the summer of the riots. You remember how quickly friends can become strangers, how quickly strangers can become enemies. In this city, survival depends not just on money and wit, but on staying invisible, staying forgettable. You try to reassure the girls, but your words sound empty even to you. The night passes in a haze of fever and fear. Somewhere, a rat gnaws at the floorboards. Someone is crying quietly, hoping not to be heard. In the morning, the market is quieter still. A few clients arrive, but most hurry away, looking over their shoulders as if afraid to be seen. The new girl does her chores in silence, her face pale. Hilda's cough is worse. You consider your options, and they are few. You could pay a bribe, but the purse is already nearly empty. You could plead innocence, but in this place, innocence is just another word for poverty. You could run, but there is nowhere to go. The city is a net, and you are tangled deep inside it. For now, you do what you have always done. You clean, you cook, you care for the sick. You tell yourself you are safe as long as you are useful. You tell yourself that rumors blow over, that storms pass. But in your heart, you know that this storm is just beginning. As darkness falls, you bolt the door and check the windows twice. The girls gather in a circle, sharing a single candle, talking quietly. You hear snatches of prayer, of gossip, of hope and despair wound so tightly together they are almost indistinguishable. You watch the flame gutter and sway, knowing how little it takes for light to go out, how quickly warmth can vanish from a house like yours. The air inside the house grows close and heavy, thick with fear and the unwashed stink of too many bodies crammed into too small a space. You have not opened the windows in days. The city's suspicion hangs just outside, pressing against the shutters like a fog. Inside, every cough is measured, every shiver noted. The girls wrap themselves in layers of old wool, their eyes sunken and wary. No one wants to admit it, but the sickness is growing. Word spreads, as it always does, that there is a physician in the lower market, fresh from the university, or so his pamphlets claim, with knowledge of leeches, humors, and mysterious powders from the far side of the sea. The city has always been full of such men, some with real learning, most with only a knack for showmanship. Still, the promise of healing is a powerful lure. You resist at first. Physicians are expensive and useless in equal measure. You have seen them bleed a man near to death, prescribe vinegar and prayer for the plague, and scold mothers for their children's deaths. But your purse is lighter than ever, and Hilda is coughing blood. The new girl stares at you with pleading eyes. Even Elsa, usually stoic, looks frightened now. Desperation is a kind of currency here, sometimes more valuable than silver. So you send Elsa to the market with a coin and a message. Ask for Dr. Lodewijk, you say. Say we have girls with fever and a mistress with a little coin left. You watch her go, hood pulled low, moving quickly past the clusters of vendors and loitering guards. By late afternoon, he arrives. You can smell him before you see him, a cloud of herbs, sweat, and the acrid tang of vinegar. He wears a dark robe and a pointed hat, his eyes hidden behind round spectacles. He is younger than you expected, cheeks smooth and pale, hands soft as a merchant's. Behind him is a boy with a basket of bottles, bandages, and tools that look more suited to a butcher than a healer. He insists on an audience in the parlor, such as it is. The girls gather, wary and hopeful in equal measure. He begins with a display, holds up vials to the light, sniffs their contents, mutters in Latin under his breath. The girls stare, transfixed. It is a performance, and you know it. But even a lie can be comforting if told with enough confidence. He asks questions in a clipped voice. Who is ill? For how long? What color is the sputum? Is there bleeding from the gums or elsewhere? You answer as best you can, translating his questions into words the girls can understand. He examines Hilda first, peering into her mouth, pressing a hand to her brow, asking her to cough. He tuts and frowns, pronouncing her imbalanced in her humors. He prescribes bloodletting and a vinegar poultice. He examines Greta next, repeating the same ritual: poke, prod, sigh. She is weak, he says. Too much cold, too little nourishment. She must drink hot wine with sage and rest. The prescription is as meaningless as it is impossible. The other girls shrink back, afraid of being singled out for leeches or worse. The new girl is almost in tears. You thank the physician with all the false gratitude you can muster, then slip him the promised coin, watching his fingers close around it as if it might escape. Before he leaves, he gives you a bundle of dried herbs, thyme, sage, and something bitter you do not recognize. Boil this in water and let the girls breathe the steam, he instructs, and burn vinegar soaked rags in every room. It will purify the air. You nod, though you know the only thing the smoke will do is sting the eyes and mask the stench for a time. He leaves in a flurry of robes and final warnings. Keep the house clean. Let no one out at night. Watch for signs of delirium. The boy with the basket trails after, silent, glancing back at the girls with a look of mingled pity and boredom. The girls are quiet after he goes. For a while, hope flickers, a fragile sense that someone has done something, however useless. Hilda lies still, exhausted by the attention. Greta sips the prescribed broth, her eyes closed. Elsa tries to boil water for the herbs, the kitchen filling with sharp, choking steam. You sit at the table, head in your hands, and listen to the sound of coughing, the rattle of spoons against empty bowls, the hush of rain against the shutters. You think of the coin you spent and what else it might have bought. More bread, another candle, a bit of meat for the pot. You wonder if you will have enough left to pay the next tax, the next bribe, the next day's rent. At dusk, you burn vinegar rags as instructed, the stench rising through the rooms. The girls complain, waving their hands, but you tell them to be quiet and breathe deep. You are angry, though not at them. Angry at the doctor, at the city, at yourself for hoping there might be something better than this endless cycle of labor and loss. Night falls, bringing little relief. The girls try to sleep, but sickness keeps them awake, tossing and sweating in their beds. You pace the halls, checking on each one, offering a cup of water here, a rag there. Sometimes they thank you. More often, they do not. You tell yourself you have done what you can, that you are keeping the house together. But in your heart, you know that nothing has changed. The world outside still suspects. The sickness still lingers. And you, well, you are still here, counting coins, counting breaths, waiting for something to give. Tomorrow, there will be another crisis, another rumor, another visit from someone who promises more than they deliver. But tonight, you sit by the window, watching the rain, listening to the city breathe and cough and mutter in the dark. You wonder if the physician will remember you, or if you are just another nameless house on a street full of sickness and secrets. The physician's visit fades into the background as days pile on days, each as gray and weary as the last. The vinegar smoke lingers in the rafters, sharp and useless. The city's fear does not diminish, and neither does yours. Every cough from Hilda, every pale night for Greta, each half-heard whisper outside your door, all weigh heavier. Food runs low. The girls, stretched thin by sickness and by one another, snap more quickly now. Small grievances, the missing comb, the larger share of bread, a kind word from a client grow into bitter arguments. You spend your days not only feeding and nursing, but breaking up squabbles, comforting, threatening, cajoling, and occasionally simply ignoring what you cannot afford to address. The house is never quiet, but the noise nowhere has an edge to it, a brittle, dangerous tone. Even the cook has become irritable, slamming pots on the table and refusing to make eye contact. When you give out supper, a stew thin as tears, the new girl tries to thank you. Elsa elbows her and hisses, "No need to act grateful. It will not get you extra." That evening, a client arrives late, a small time peddler, his face red with drink, his purse heavy with coins that clink promisingly. He laughs loudly, asks after his favorite girl, but she is in no state to work tonight. Instead, you send another, Lise, who is older and more shrewd than most, but not above earning a few extra coins. The client is not satisfied. He leers at the new girl, who flushes and shrinks away. Lise steps between them, voice sharp, and the tension breaks into argument. Words at first, then a slap, then hands clutching hair, nails raking skin. The new girl tries to back away, but Lise is relentless, her voice cracking with rage. "You think you are special? You think any of us want this? You will take your turn like the rest." You hear the shouts and come running, heart pounding with dread. The client looks on, amused, until you turn your glare on him. "Out!" you snap, and he backs away, muttering, stumbling out the door into the darkness. The girls are still locked together, bodies twisting, faces bright with fury and tears. You wade in, pulling them apart, hands stinging where you catch a stray blow. It is not the first fight you have broken up, nor will it be the last. You drag Lise aside, the new girl slumping against the wall, sobbing. The others watch, wide eyed, silent as ghosts. "Enough," you shout, voice raw. "If you have strength for fighting, you have strength for work. If you have energy to hate each other, use it to survive. There are no friends or enemies here, only those who endure." Lise spits at your feet, but you hold her gaze until she looks away. You turn to the new girl, kneeling so you are eye to eye. She tries to speak, but you hush her. "This is how it is," you say. "If you want to live, you learn to let it pass." Your words sound colder than you mean them, but there is no room for softness, not tonight. You force Lise and the new girl to sit, side by side, until their breathing slows and the anger burns out. The other girls drift away, pretending not to watch, each nursing her own grudges. In a corner, Hilda begins coughing again. You fetch her water and return to the kitchen, pulse still thudding in your ears. Later, as you clean the scrape on the new girl's cheek, you ask what happened. She shakes her head, tears running silently. "I only wanted to be left alone," she says. You say nothing, but your silence is an answer. There is no alone in this house, only the space you can defend, the crumbs you can hold on to. Lise sits by the fire, rubbing her wrist, not looking at anyone. Elsa brings her a piece of bread, the gesture clumsy and half resentful. There is no apology, but there is something softer in the silence between them. The house quiets as the night deepens. You go from room to room, checking locks, counting girls, pausing at each bed to listen for breath. The new girl sleeps with her arms wrapped around herself, flinching at every sound. Lise lies awake, staring at the ceiling, lips moving in silent calculation. How many days until her luck runs out? How many nights until she is the one left behind? You sit by the dying fire, knees drawn to your chest, wondering what it would take to make this place a home. You know the answer before the thought is finished. More food, more warmth, fewer men, less fear, impossibilities, all of them. In the morning, you find blood on a pillow, a torn ribbon on the floor, and the first rays of light sneaking in under the door. The girls wake silent, avoiding one another's eyes. You dole out breakfast in silence. You know it will not be the last fight. You know you will be called to play judge, nurse, and executioner again and again. You are so tired of your own authority, so tired of the petty tyrannies that keep the peace for another day. Outside, the city begins to wake. A bell rings somewhere, a dog barks, carts rattle past. Life goes on, grinding away every softness, leaving only what can endure. You take a deep breath and prepare for another day, your jaw set, your hands steady, your heart sore and small and still beating. It begins, as most troubles do, with a sound, one you have learned to dread. In the quiet before dawn, you hear it, scratching, skittering, a soft gnawing in the darkness beneath the floorboards. Rats, you think, though it is not so much a thought as a certainty. There have always been rats here. There have always been rats everywhere. The only question is how many and how soon they will show themselves. You ignore it at first. There are bigger problems to occupy your mind. The sick girls, the thinning stew, the lingering sourness left by last night's quarrel, but the noise grows louder, more insistent. In the kitchen, the cook scowls and bangs pots, muttering about chewed onions and missing flour. You promise to look into it, knowing there is little you can do. The city belongs to rats as much as it does to people. By midday, there is no more ignoring it. The smell rises up from the cellar, sharp and oily, fouling the air no matter how many windows you open. The girls wrinkle their noses, cover their mouths with shawls, glare at you as if you have invited this new misery yourself. You gather your courage, find the cellar key where you have hidden it, on a hook behind the stove, wrapped in a rag to keep it from rusting. The girls watch you prepare as if you are suiting up for battle. In a way, you are. You grab a battered broom and a lantern, with barely enough oil to last the hour. Elsa, always brave, offers to come with you. You send her back to the hearth with a look that brooks no argument. This is your responsibility. If anything goes wrong, it will be on your hands alone. The cellar is as you remember, narrow steps slick with moisture, walls sweating with age, air so thick with rot and mildew it is hard to breathe. The light from your lantern wavers, throwing monstrous shadows. You see them, then, a blur of motion, a dozen sets of eyes catching the glow, a scurry of bodies darting behind crates and sacks. The rats are bold here, unafraid of broom or boot. You begin to chase them, cursing and swinging the broom, knowing it is a fool's errand. You knock over a sack of barley. What is left inside spills out, gnawed through and spoiled. A rat, larger than a kitten, leaps from the shadows, hissing before vanishing into a crack in the wall. The lantern's light catches a pile of droppings, a half-eaten loaf, something pale and soft that may once have been cheese. It is not just the food they spoil, but the sense of safety, the illusion of control. You are reminded again how thin the line is between survival and ruin. How many meals will be lost to these intruders? How many illnesses will they bring with them? You think of the city's stories, the plague that came in rat fur, the fevers that started in the cellar and spread through whole streets. You patch up what you can. You stuff rags and broken bits of wood into the largest holes, sprinkle ashes in the corners, whisper a curse you half remember from your childhood. You know it will not be enough. Rats are more patient than people. They always return. When you emerge, blinking in the weak light of the kitchen, the girls gather around you. Are they gone? Elsa asks. You shake your head. For now, keep the food upstairs. No crumbs on the floor. And if you see one, do not try to catch it. Tell me. Your authority feels brittle in your mouth, but they nod, half believing, half pretending. You spend the afternoon scouring the kitchen and storeroom, moving what food you have left to higher shelves. You use what little money remains to buy traps from a peddler on the corner, rusty, cruel things, but effective enough for now. The cook grumbles about the lost barley and swears she will keep her cleaver handy. But the girls are unsettled. They jump at every creak, every imagined rustle. Hilda, still coughing, refuses to sleep near the floor. Greta insists on tucking the hem of her dress into her stockings, terrified of something crawling up her leg. The new girl, who has seen little enough comfort since she arrived, sits in the corner with her knees pulled tight to her chest. At supper, the conversation turns inevitably to rats, their size, their cunning, the diseases they bring. The girls share stories, some true, most exaggerated, about children bitten in their sleep, about rat kings tangled together by their own filthy tails, about curses that follow wherever rats settle. You let them talk. Fear needs an outlet. So does anger. Better to blame the rats than each other. tonight. After the meal, you patrol the house again, lantern in hand, ears pricked for any sign of movement. The city outside is restless too. You hear a fight break out in the alley, someone's angry shout, a bottle smashed against stone. The world is full of predators, and you are forever counting which are worst, the ones with fur or the ones with faces. Before bed, you check on every girl. Hilda is feverish but calm. Greta sleeps, fitful. Lisa, still sore from the night before, glares at you but accepts a crust of bread without a word. Elsa asks if you think the rats will ever leave. You tell her yes, though you do not believe it. Lies are as necessary as food in a place like this. You lie awake, listening. The scratching comes again, faint but unmistakable. You imagine them below, breeding and waiting, their hunger as endless as your own. You wonder, not for the first time, how much longer you can hold this house together. How much longer until the foundations of wood, of routine, of sanity give way. Sleep comes slowly, heavy with dread and the memory of tiny, skittering feet. Another night, another enemy in the dark. You promise yourself you will try again tomorrow, though you know tomorrow will be just the same. The morning after the rats, you wake with aches in every joint, as if your bones resent the burden of yet another day. You hear the girls moving about, quiet, efficient, unwilling to waste breath on talk after a restless night. You are halfway through sorting what remains of the barley when a hammering on the front door jolts you. Not the anxious, uncertain tap of a beggar, nor the slovenly knock of a drunk, but an official, angry pounding that makes the dishes jump in their cupboards. You do not need to look to know. The city watch. The girls freeze, exchanging glances full of dread and calculation. Lisa curses under her breath. Elsa slips away toward the attic. You square your shoulders, wipe your hands on your apron, and go to answer. Three men stand outside in rough city blue tunics, each wearing the expression of one who has seen far too much of human misery and learned to enjoy it. Their leader is a heavy-set man with a scar through one eyebrow, eyes that do not bother with pretense. Inspection, he says, pushing past you before you can respond. There is no use arguing. You step aside, watching as the men move through your house with practiced indifference. They know what to look for: money, girls too young or too sick, anything that might justify another fine or a favor owed. One sniffs at a pitcher on the table. Another pokes through the storeroom, upends a basket, shrugs at the sight of the rat traps. The leader does not bother with small talk. There have been complaints, he says, voice low and dangerous. Neighbors say there is sickness here. Say there are fights, noise at night. Say you keep more girls than you pay taxes for. You meet his gaze, steady but careful. There is always sickness in the city, sir. The girls are quiet as can be managed. As for numbers, you can count for yourself. You hope your voice does not tremble. He grins, a flash of yellow teeth. If it were up to me, I would close this place and let the rats have it. He leans in, breath sour with old ale. But there are procedures, of course, papers, signatures, and so on, all expensive. You know this game. You go to your stove and retrieve the small purse of coins, hands steady by long practice. For the city, you say, as if reciting a prayer. For the paperwork, he weighs the purse, not bothering to count it. This will do for now. The other men make a show of searching, but it is little more than theater. They rattle pots, open cupboards, peer under beds. One lingers by the new girl, who tries not to shrink away. You catch his eye and shake your head, firm, unspoken warning. He moves on. Before leaving, the leader issues his verdict. Keep the house clean. Keep your girls indoors after dark. Any more complaints, and we will be back. The words are as familiar as his threats. They have no more weight than last week's bread. When the watch is gone, the house is quieter still. The girls drift back from their hiding places. Faces pale and pinched, Elsa asks if they will come back. They always come back, you say. It is not a warning, only a truth. The rest of the day passes with an unease that clings to every corner. The girls move more carefully, whisper less, as if even their voices might summon trouble. The cook double checks the locks on the doors, muttering that next time they will find something, anything, to take you all away. Clients are scarce that night. News spreads faster than fire in the city. Men who once came in laughter now pass by, eyes averted. The ones who do come are more demanding, more nervous, as if afraid to catch what ails your house by accident. You spend the evening counting what little money remains, running through numbers in your head. The taxes, the bribes, the food, every coin already spoken for, every debt already overdue. You think for a moment about closing the doors, telling the girls to run, scattering to the four winds. But there is nowhere to go. The city will not let you leave. Hunger and sickness would only follow elsewhere. At bedtime, you gather the girls for a quiet talk. No one leaves after dark. No shouting. No fights. Keep the windows closed and do not answer the door unless it is me. If the watch comes again, do not argue. Do not weep. Let me handle it. They nod, faces tight with fear and resignation. You see how young some of them are, even the ones who act hardest. You see, too, the beginnings of something harder, a stubbornness that perhaps will see them through the winter. You try to sleep, but rest will not come. In the darkness, you listen for footsteps on the stairs, the sound of another angry fist at the door. The house feels smaller, tighter, the air pressed thin by fear. You think of the watch captain's grin, the weight of the purse in his hand, the promise that he will return. You do not pray for safety anymore. You pray only for another day to pass without loss. In the city, there is always someone watching, always someone waiting to take what little you have. You wrap yourself in your blanket and close your eyes, willing yourself not to dream of uniforms or keys or the next knock at your door. Tomorrow, you tell yourself, you will survive. Tomorrow, you will find a way. It is all you can promise and all you can do. The city is restless with spring storms, rain battering the rooftops, and wind howling in the alleys. Your house has grown even quieter since the visit from the watch. The girls move like ghosts, careful not to draw attention, careful not to disturb the uneasy balance that holds the place together. Every sound outside makes someone flinch. Every knock brings a shadow to the window. You do not notice she is gone at first. The day is long, marked by the usual worries, sickness, hunger, the endless chore of keeping the girls from one another's throats. At midday, you hand out bread and onion soup, watch the girls line up, count heads as always. Something feels off, but you are too tired to grasp it. It is Elsa who speaks up, voice thin as a reed. Where is Anna? The room grows still. You look around, counting again. Anna's place at the table is empty, her bowl untouched, her blanket neatly folded in the dormitory. No one saw her leave, or if they did, they are not saying. You question the girls, one by one. Most say nothing. Some shrug, eyes downcast. Lisa claims Anna was up early, sweeping the front step, but after that, nothing. The new girl says she heard voices late last night, but cannot say whose. Hilda only coughs, too weak to care. The house closes in, air thick with the old fear. You check the doors and windows. Nothing is broken, nothing forced. Anna's shoes are missing, and so is her thin cloak, the one she always hated, but wore because there was nothing else. You search the streets outside, ask the neighbors, but none admit to seeing her. In the market, no one cares. In the city, girls vanish all the time. By evening, you are no closer to the truth. The girls whisper in corners, inventing stories. Anna ran off with a client. Anna was taken by the watch. Anna drowned herself in the river. Each version is more dramatic than the last, each a way to explain the impossible with something just as unbearable. You let them talk. It is easier than silence. You try to recall the last time you spoke to Anna. She was tired, as always, slow to smile, but quick to help. She had family once, far away. She spoke of them less and less as the years passed. You wonder if she planned her leaving, if she slipped away in the hope of finding a better life, or if someone else decided for her. In the dark, you run through possibilities. Did she meet a client who offered more than coin? Did she simply walk away, tired of the routine, tired of the house? Or did someone take her, one of the men who linger at your door after dark, eyes bright with need and cruelty? You will never know. The city swallows secrets whole, and your house is just one mouth among many. The girls watch you, looking for anger, for blame, for some sign of what comes next. You gather them together, voice hard with practiced calm. If anyone knows where Anna is, speak now. If not, we hope she is safe. We do not speak of her outside this house. We do not bring trouble to the door. No one answers. Some nod, some weep, most just stare at the floor. Sleep eludes you that night. You listen for Anna's step on the stair, for the sound of the door opening, for anything that would explain her absence. You think of all the girls who have passed through your house, each leaving in their own way, some in the night, some in the morning, some carried out by men who call themselves righteous. You want to feel anger or grief or even hope. Instead, you feel only the weight of the unknown, the slow erosion of certainty that gnaws at your insides. You cannot protect them all. You cannot protect yourself. The city takes what it wants and gives nothing back. In the morning, Anna's bed is still empty. You roll up her blanket, fold her dress, place her things in the corner of the attic. The girls avoid her space, as if the absence might be contagious. Breakfast is eaten in silence. No one mentions her name. Later, a client asks after her. You shrug, offer another girl in her place, feign ignorance as if Anna was never here. The man does not care. He leaves his coin and goes upstairs without another word. You count the money, feeling nothing. Days pass. Rumors flutter through the market. Someone saw a girl matching Anna's description near the docks, or at the church, or lying face down by the riverbank. You chase each story until you are too tired to run. Eventually, you stop listening. You remind the girls to stay close, to travel in pairs, to trust no one. You check the doors 3 times each night, count the beds before you sleep, but you know, deep down, that it is all a performance. No lock is strong enough to hold back the world. Anna is gone, and life goes on. The city swallows her story as it has swallowed so many others. The house settles back into its old routines. One less bowl at the table, one less voice in the chorus of complaints. You mark her passing with a single, silent nod. She is gone. You are still here. And that, in the end, is all that matters. The house feels even heavier since Anna vanished, as if her absence carved out a hollow that nothing can fill. The girls avoid her bed. The new girl crosses herself whenever she passes the attic door, and even Elsa grows quiet and withdrawn. The wind rattles the window panes. The city outside carries on, indifferent. Hilda's cough has grown worse. She spends her days by the fire, wrapped in every spare blanket you can find, her body shrunken to half its size, her eyes dull with fever. You bring her thin broth, a crust of bread softened with water, but she eats little. At night, you hear her breathing, ragged, uneven, a slow drowning. The girls tiptoe around her as if afraid they might catch the sickness just by looking. No one says it aloud, but you all know. You remember the winters when death passed through your house like an old acquaintance, pausing only to pick the weakest before moving on. You remember digging shallow graves in frozen earth, lighting candles in hope that the priests might offer a prayer. Now you have neither time nor candles to spare. One night you sit by Hilda's side, holding her hand as she slips in and out of uneasy sleep. She talks in fragments, memories of a village long lost to time, the names of children she never had, snatches of songs from her childhood. You answer when you can, though your voice is tight and useless. You wipe the sweat from her brow, press cool rags to her neck, and watch as her breath grows shallower. When morning comes, she is gone. There is no drama, no gasp, no final message, just a soft exhale, a slackening of her grip, and then nothing. You close her eyes, straighten her blankets, and sit in silence for a long time, listening to the muffled sounds of the waking house. The girls gather around the hearth, watching you for instructions. Some weep, quietly and quickly, as if ashamed of their grief. Most are silent, their faces set with a kind of practiced resignation. Hilda was with you the longest, but even her death cannot stop the routines. The fire must be lit, water fetched, bread sliced, floors swept. You rise, set your jaw, and begin to make arrangements. There is no money for a priest, but the city demands a body be buried, preferably quickly, and with as little fuss as possible. You walk to the carpenter's shop and bargain for the cheapest coffin he has, a rough box of splintered wood. The price makes you wince. You hand over nearly all the coins left from the last week's clients, knowing there will be nothing left for meat or candles. The coffin arrives at midday, carried by two boys who linger for a tip you cannot afford to give. The girls help you lift Hilda into the box. She weighs almost nothing now. You wrap her in her oldest dress, the one she always saved for special occasions. You place a piece of bread and a small wooden cross at her feet, more for yourself than for her. The lid goes on with a dull thud. The city gravedigger comes in the afternoon, sour-faced and impatient. He loads the box onto his cart and waits, arms crossed, until you press a crust of bread into his hand as a meager thanks. You follow as far as the alley, watching as the cart disappears into the mist. Hilda's name is already fading from your mind. Soon she will be another unmarked grave in the pauper's field, another body among thousands. When you return, the girls have gone about their chores, but a heaviness lingers. The new girl asks if Hilda will be remembered. Elsa, voice shaking, says she will pray for her. Lise rolls her eyes, but you see her slip a bit of bread into the fire that night. A silent offering. You clean Hilda's corner yourself, folding her blankets, washing the floor, packing away her few belongings. You find a broken comb, a small copper coin, a scrap of cloth with a child's name embroidered, someone you never met, someone long gone. You tuck these things into a box at the bottom of the closet. The house is emptier, but no less crowded with the memory of loss. The next day you count your money, almost nothing left. The stew is thinner than ever. The girls are quieter, moving through their routines with a new kind of weariness. The city's troubles remain: rumors, rats, the constant threat of another visit from the watch. But Hilda is gone, and you do not have the luxury of mourning. You think, as you sweep the ashes from the hearth, that perhaps you have grown too good at this, saying goodbye, starting again, scraping together enough to last another day. The girls look to you for strength, for instruction, for comfort, but you have little left to give. That night, you sit alone by the window, watching rain streak the glass. The house creaks around you, shifting in the wind, the old grief settling deeper into your bones. You think of Hilda, her laugh, her stubbornness, her quiet moments by the fire, and you allow yourself, for a single breath, to miss her. Then you rise, bar the door, and prepare for another day. Tomorrow, as always, will come whether you are ready or not. Spring brings no relief. The rain is relentless, but the cold lingers, and the city smells of damp and rot. Each day begins the same as the last. You wake to coughing, to creaking floors, to the shuffle of tired girls preparing to face another day. The empty bed in the corner, once Hilda's, is a silent warning. No one lingers near it for long. The food is almost gone. Bread is stale, cheese is blue with mold, and even the rats seem leaner than usual. You send Elsa and the new girl to the market, clutching the last copper coins. They return with carrots soft enough to bend and a single bone barely worth the effort to boil. By noon, you are counting coins again, making a list of debts. The rent is overdue, the woodpile is almost gone. The city guard's inspection fee will soon be due again. The girls are restless, nerves frayed to threads, squabbling over chores, over bread, over anything at all. The announcement comes without warning. You hear the crier in the street before you see him, his voice carrying over the rooftops. By order of the council, a new levy upon all houses of commerce and pleasure. By order of the council, all taxes to be paid before week's end. The city's answer to every shortage is always the same: make the poor pay more. Clients trickle in that evening, sullen and sour, grumbling about the new tax. They pay less, linger longer, and complain about everything: the soup, the beds, the company. You count the coins, your heart sinking. There will not be enough. The next morning, a city official arrives with a new ledger, his shoes clean despite the mud. Your assessment, he says, handing over a slip of parchment with numbers scrawled in a hasty, indifferent hand. The sum is more than you made in a month, even in good times. You try to reason, voice low and calm. The city squeezes blood from a stone, sir. If we had more, we would pay more. He shrugs, complain to the council, pay by Friday, or close your doors. You watch him go, his fine cloak billowing, and the girls gather around, faces tight. Lise asks, "What will we do?" You have no answer. Elsa suggests asking the clients to pay in advance, but you know they will only go elsewhere. The new girl stares at her hands, silent. You spend the day searching for solutions, each more hopeless than the last. Sell a dress, pawn a ring, borrow from someone more dangerous than the city. But you have nothing left to sell, no one left to ask. Even the pawnbroker, whose shop is as crowded with misery as yours, shakes his head. The cook tries to stretch the stew with water and potato peels. The girls eat without complaint, scraping bowls clean. That night, you call a meeting. The tax must be paid, you say, or we all end up in the street. If anyone knows a way, speak now. Silence. The city has squeezed out every clever idea. One girl, quiet and pale, suggests taking on new girls for a cut of their earnings. You remember Anna, remember the new girl's first day, and feel something twist in your chest. You shake your head. There is not enough for us. Another mouth will only mean more hunger. You sleep badly, dreaming of debt collectors at the door, of the girls scattered to the wind, of the city swallowing the house whole. You wake in the middle of the night to the sound of someone weeping, maybe Lisa, maybe Elsa, maybe yourself. By Thursday, you have scraped together only half the sum. You try begging the official for time. He laughs, points to the ledger, and reminds you of the penalties for delay. The city has no patience for the weak, he says. You knew the business. The girls grow more anxious as the deadline nears, tempers flare. Lise threatens to leave, to take her chances at another house. Elsa begs her to stay, but you say nothing. You understand. There is no loyalty in hunger. There is only the desperate hope that somewhere, somehow, it might be easier. You try to shield the new girl from the worst of it, but she sees enough. She watches you count coins, listens to the arguments, stands in the kitchen doorway as the cook curses the city with every breath. She comes to you late at night, voice small. Will they shut us down? You do not lie. Maybe, maybe not. We have survived worse. We can survive this. The day of reckoning arrives with gray skies and the smell of rain. You put all the coins you have into a purse, hands trembling. You hand it over to the city's agent. He weighs it, shrugs, and marks something in his book. You owe the rest, next week or else. You return home lighter by every measure. The house is silent. The girls watch you, and you see in their eyes the same dull acceptance you saw after Hilda died, after Anna disappeared. They know what you know. The city always finds a way to take what little you have left. That night, you light a candle for the future, but the flame gutters and dies before you can make a wish. The wind rattles the shutters, and you wonder if the house will still be standing when morning comes. You tell yourself you will find a way. You have no choice. Tomorrow, as always, will come. The mood in the house darkens with each passing day. The new tax has done its work. If not to empty your purse, then to empty every face of hope. Even laughter has grown rare, a brittle sound that cracks and disappears almost as soon as it begins. Hunger and fatigue are written in every gesture, every word, every look cast at the shrinking loaf on the table. The girls grow restless. They gather in corners, their whispers urgent and sharp. You pretend not to notice at first, clinging to routine, the daily sweep of the rooms, the counting of coins, the endless struggle to keep the house just warm enough, just clean enough, just quiet enough. But the tension grows like mold in the walls, inescapable, sour, spreading into every conversation. One morning, the new girl refuses to rise. You find her curled in her cot, face turned to the wall. No, she says, voice hoarse, I will not work today. The words are a pebble tossed into still water. Elsa, emboldened, says she is too hungry to do anything, and Lise mutters that she would rather take her chances in the street. You stand at the foot of the dormitory, hands on your hips, feeling something inside you crack. If you do not work, you say, there is no bread, no bed, no fire, the old threat. But you see in their eyes that it has lost its sting. Lisa sits up, arms crossed. And if we do work, what do we get? The bread is gone. The city takes everything. You take what is left. We are starving, and you act as if a kind word will fill our bellies. Her words are knives, crude, unpolished, but sharp. The others nod. For a moment, you remember Anna, Hilda, all the girls who have come and gone, and you wonder how many once dared to speak like this. You try reason. You remind them of the city, of the watch, of the street outside, cold, dangerous, indifferent. You speak of survival, of how each of them is here because nowhere else is safer or warmer or more forgiving. You remind them how many have died for less, but you see the rebellion growing in their faces. Elsa weeps, hands balled in her lap, while Lise paces the room, voice rising. If we all leave, what will you do then? She demands. We are not your property. We are tired and sick and hungry. If we are to die, at least let us choose where. You feel the room tilt, the fragile hierarchy threatening to dissolve. For a heartbeat, you imagine giving up, throwing open the door, telling them to run as far as their legs will carry them. But you know the city, you know the cost. Instead, you meet their anger with your own. This house is not a prison. The door is there. Go, if you believe there is a better life waiting outside. Your voice is steady, but your heart stumbles. None move, They know, as you do, that there is nowhere to go. The threat is hollow, the only escape a different kind of misery. The rebellion simmers, but does not boil over. Lisa storms out, slamming the door so hard the walls shudder. Elsa sobs quietly, comforted by the new girl. The others stare at the floor, at their hands, at the cracks in the walls. You leave them there, returning to your own room, closing the door, letting your knees buckle beneath you for a single silent minute. By evening, the girls are back at work, their movements slower, their words clipped and careful. No one apologizes, but a new wariness hangs in the air. Even the clients notice fewer jokes, more silence, more eyes darting toward the door, as if at any moment someone might shout or weep or leave for good. You gather the girls after supper. You do not scold. Instead, you offer what you have left: a crust of bread, a cup of thin broth, a promise that you will do what you can to make things better, though the words feel threadbare. You remind them, gently, that your fate is tied to theirs. If you fall, I fall. If I fall, you fall. This house stands only if we hold it together. Lisa returns late, her face smeared with tears and grime. She does not speak, but she eats. Elsa finds you in the kitchen and whispers, "We do not want to leave. We are just so tired." You squeeze her hand. "I know, so am I." The days after pass with cautious quiet. The rebellion has not solved anything, but it has changed the house. The girls speak a little more openly, their complaints sharper, their silences deeper. You feel your authority fray, but do not let it slip away. You allow yourself a moment of pride, not for keeping order, but for holding the girls together, even as everything else falls apart. The world outside is no kinder than before. The tax collector comes for the rest of the levy, and you pay him with coins borrowed from a neighbor, promising to repay what you do not have. The city is a mouth that never stops eating, but inside the house, something softer flickers, no longer hope exactly, but something like solidarity. When the new girl wakes in the night, shivering with fever, Elsa brings her a blanket. When Lise snaps at the cook curses back, then quietly saves her the last scrap of meat. You know none of this will save you, but for a moment you feel less alone. Night falls, and the rebellion fades into memory. The girls sleep uneasily, curled together for warmth. You count your coins and debts, knowing neither will last. You watch the moon rise through dirty glass. Tell yourself that tomorrow you will try again, because there is nothing else to do. You wake to screams, not the usual arguments, not the night terrors of the sick or the drunken jeers of late clients in the alley, but real, panicked screaming, the sound of something gone wrong that cannot be put right. For a moment you lie still, mind stuck in the fog of early morning, until the sharp tang of smoke curls under your door and panic roots you upright. You stumble into the hallway, flinging open doors. The girls are already awake, voices raised in confusion, faces pale in the orange half light that flickers at the windows. Fire! Someone cries. The neighbor's house is burning. Elsa is at your side, clutching your arm, shivering not from cold, but from terror. You rush to the front room and wrench open the shutters. Across the alley, the little house that always leaked worse than yours is roaring like a forge. Flames eat the roof, hurling sparks into the wet air, turning the dawn thick and choking. People spill into the street, women with children clutched to their skirts, men dragging buckets of water, shouting for help, for mercy, for anything. Your own house is not yet in danger. The alley is wide enough, the wind is kind. Still, you remember stories of fire jumping streets, of sparks settling in thatch and kindling whole blocks before dawn. You bark orders, telling the girls to pack what they can carry, to keep low to the ground, to stay together. Some move with a numb obedience, stuffing clothes and blankets into sacks, while others freeze, staring at the flames as if mesmerized. You make the rounds, dragging stragglers away from windows, shaking shoulders, calling names. Lisa's calm, almost cold. She slaps one girl who will not move until she stumbles to her feet. Elsa weeps openly. The new girl sits on the stair with her arms wrapped around her knees, rocking back and forth. Outside, the city's chaos grows. Neighbors form a bucket line, but the water seems to vanish into the blaze. You see the baker, stripped to his shirt, hurling water into the flames. The city watch arrives at last, shouting, shoving, beating back anyone too close. The stench of burning wood, wet earth, and something far worse fills the air. Hours pass in a nightmare of noise and waiting. The fire consumes everything in its path: timbers, beds, hopes, whole lives, leaving behind only steaming ash. By midday, the flames are gone, replaced by sullen smoke and the hollow faces of the ruined. You lead the girls outside, blinking in the gray light. The street is blackened, scattered with debris. The house across the way is nothing but a skeleton, scorched beams reaching up like broken fingers. You check for missing neighbors, offer water, give a scrap of bread to a girl half your age whose house is gone. There is little comfort to give, but you offer it anyway. The girls huddle together, watching, silent. Even Lise, so quick with her tongue, has nothing to say. The danger has passed, but the fear remains. The girls watch the sky for new sparks, jump at every creak and shout. That night, you forbid anyone to leave, lock every door, check and recheck the attic for embers. The new girl whispers that she smells smoke in her dreams. Elsa refuses to sleep near the window. You spend the hours before dawn on your knees, checking the house for weak spots, places where the roof leaks, where the wall is thin, where a single careless spark might finish what the city began. The wood is old, dry beneath the surface. Your coin purse is empty, but you vow to patch what you can. Survival, is as much about luck as labor. The city, for its part, shrugs. By morning, the crowds have thinned. A few men shovel ash, carting away the remains of their neighbors' lives. Children pick through rubble for nails, for spoons, for anything left unburned. The watch moves on to the next trouble. The priest comes to mutter a blessing, but even he seems bored. Inside, the girls quarrel over who will fetch water, who will sleep nearest the stove, who will sweep the soot from the step. Tempers are shorter now. Sleep was scarce and dreams worse. You try to calm them, reminding them that they are safe, that the fire is over. You do not say what you are thinking, that safety is a story, that nothing here is ever truly over. The fear lingers in the walls. The smell of smoke clings to everything: clothes, hair, skin. You ration out the last of the soap, order windows to stay open despite the cold. Some girls clean to keep busy, others stare at nothing, replaying the night in their heads. Later, you walk the ruined street. You see faces you know, eyes ringed with soot and grief. You nod, but say little. There are no words for this kind of loss, only the shared understanding that everything can vanish in a single hour. You remember stories from your own childhood: fires, floods, plague, and realize how much of survival is just remembering to be afraid. By nightfall, the house is still standing, but you know how thin your luck has grown. You light a candle for the dead and the living, for your girls, for the ones who have nowhere left to go. The flame wavers, but does not go out. You remind yourself, as you do every day, that you must endure. There is no other choice. Tomorrow, the city will find a new disaster, and you will wake to meet it, tired, wary, and unbroken, at least for now. You have barely swept the last of the soot from the front step when the priest arrives. He comes not with prayers or alms, but with the slow, steady tread of a man accustomed to doors opening before him. His robe is spotless, heavy with embroidery. His boots leave a trail of clean straw behind him. His eyes, sharp and gray, miss nothing, not the stains on the floor, not the hollow cheeks of the girls, not the coins missing from the offering bowl in the hall. You meet him at the door, your hands still black with ash, your hair pulled back in haste. He does not greet you. He looks past you at the girls gathered near the fire and sighs as if their suffering is an affront. I am here to remind you, he says, of your duty to God and to the poor. There are many in need after the fire. The church expects every house to contribute. His voice is soft, but the threat is not. You nod, heart sinking. The last time he came, you paid with what little you could: half a loaf, a handful of copper coins. This time, you have even less. You motion for him to sit, but he waves you away and circles the room, inspecting with that silent, holy disapproval that needs no words. The girls shrink from him. Lise glares. Elsa lowers her head. The new girl huddles behind the stove. The priest surveys them all, then turns back to you. Your house survived, but many did not. It would be wise to show gratitude. God sees everything. The city council listens to the church. You fetch your coin purse, counting out what little remains. 3 coins, worn thin. You offer them, hoping it will be enough. He takes them, fingers brushing yours, and frowns. Is this all? You force yourself to meet his gaze. It is all I have, Father. The new tax took the rest. The fire drove away our clients. The girls are sick and hungry. He studies you, weighing the truth. There are rumors, he says finally, about this house, about sickness, about sin. The church can protect its flock, but it can also turn them out. You know how quickly word spreads in this quarter. You nod again. We want no trouble, Father. We pray for your favor. You add a scrap of bread to the coins. He takes it, still unsatisfied, and moves to the door. Before leaving, he delivers his final warning. Send what you can each week, pray for forgiveness, and keep your girls indoors. If the council hears more complaints, there will be consequences. The word hangs in the air, sour and thick. He leaves as quietly as he came, his robe brushing the doorway, his footsteps echoing in the damp hall. You let the breath out of your lungs. The girls watch you, waiting for your verdict, for your anger, for something that might ease the fear. But you have nothing left. You sink onto a stool and press your hands to your face, trying not to cry. The city, the watch, the church, each demands their share, and each gives only the smallest mercy in return. The girls drift back to their chores, quieter than before. Lise mutters, the church would take the shirt from a corpse. Elsa nods, staring at the empty fire grate. The new girl says nothing, but her eyes are wet. You gather the coins, count them again, find nothing new. You scrape together the last of the flour, stretch it with water, and tell the girls to eat. They obey, because what else is there to do? That night, you sit by the window, watching as the priest passes down the street, calling at each house. You wonder if he remembers your name, or if you are just another sinner in his book, another house to tax, another soul to threaten. You pray, but the words feel empty. You ask for mercy, for food, for warmth. You ask for the girls to survive another week. You do not ask for hope. Hope, you have learned, is for other people. Sleep comes slowly, restless and thin. In the dark, you hear the priest's words again: duty, gratitude, consequences. You wonder what it would take to be free of these debts. You wonder what will happen if you cannot pay. When morning comes, the city is gray, the sky low. The girls rise, wash, eat, prepare for another day. You put on your cleanest dress, tie your hair back, count your coins again. Tomorrow, you tell yourself, tomorrow will be better, or at least no worse. But you do not believe it. Not really. You wake before the bells. There is no sound but your own breathing and the faint rustle of rats in the wall. The room is colder than yesterday, though you do not know if the season is to blame or if the fire simply burned lower while you slept. You rise, your joints aching, and look out the window. The city is just beginning to stir, a few lights flickering, the shapes of vendors dragging their carts toward the market, a woman sweeping the street with a broom no less tired than she is. Inside, the house is still. The girls sleep in clumps of tangled blankets, arms thrown across one another, bodies pressed close for warmth. You recognize the patterns. Lace curled protectively around Elsa, the new girl clutching a ragged scrap of cloth as if it might ward off nightmares, another coughing quietly into her sleeve. Their faces are pale, hollowed by hunger and too many sleepless nights, but for a few brief moments they look almost peaceful. You light the stove, listening to the pop and crackle of wet wood. You ladle water from the bucket, stretch the last bit of flour into a thin, gray paste for breakfast. You know exactly how far you can thin it before anyone protests. How many mouths can be filled with what little remains? The routine is automatic. Sweep the floor, chase out the rats, count the bread, patch the window where the rain leaked in. You check the pantry, almost empty. You check the coin purse, lighter than ever. The ledger sits on the shelf, its pages smudged with grease and disappointment. You write down yesterday's numbers, but the math never changes. The girls wake slowly. Lise is first, moving stiffly, her face set in lines that will never smooth. Elsa rubs her eyes, tries to smile. The new girl sits on her cot, silent, waiting for direction. You give them tasks: fetch water, scrub the kitchen, mend a dress. They obey because there is nothing else to do. Even rebellion, you think, requires strength they do not have today. There is comfort in the sameness. No surprises, no hope for miracles, only the next small thing. You listen for news. Will the watch come again? Will the priest? Will another girl vanish, or fall sick, or simply lose the will to rise? You cannot say, but you have learned not to borrow trouble before it arrives. At market, the price of bread has doubled. The butcher offers you bones for soup, but only if you pay in advance. You count out coins, promise to return with the rest. He shrugs, as if your debt is just one more among many. You wonder how many houses like yours scrape by on promises. Clients come and go, fewer than last month, more than next, you suspect. Some pay, some do not, some are gentle, some are not. You watch the girls carefully, note every limp, every bruise, every silence that grows too long. You comfort where you can, but mostly you keep order. The world outside offers no softness, nor can you. At midday, You find Elsa staring out the window. She asks if you remember the countryside, the green fields, the sound of birds. You do, vaguely, a memory so faded it feels borrowed from someone else. You nod, say yes, then send her to help the cook. The past is not a safe place to linger. Afternoon brings new worries, a cracked beam in the roof, a letter from the city council reminding you of another tax, a neighbor warning that thieves have been seen in the alley. You tighten the locks, make a note to watch the pantry, check the hiding place for what little money remains. Everything is fragile: the house, the food, the girls, your temper. Evening falls, bringing the same gray light and the same exhausted prayers. Supper is thinner than breakfast, but no one complains. The girls eat, talk in low voices, cling to each other for warmth. Lise tells a story about a client who tried to pay with buttons. Elsa laughs, the sound startling in its brightness, then falls quiet. You look at them, at all you have lost and all you have managed to keep. You wonder, not for the first time, how long you can continue. How many more winters? How many more visits from the watch? How many more girls lost to the dark? But you know there is no answer. There is only the next day, the next debt, the next small mercy. Night comes, and you bar the door, check the locks, listen for the rain. You settle by the stove, staring into the weak glow, feeling the weight of the house press down on your shoulders. You think of Anna, of Hilda, of all the names that have slipped away. You wonder if you are still yourself or just the shape left behind by routine. You rise before dawn again. You wake the girls again. You stretch the food again. You bargain again. You endure again. The city does not care if you rise or fall. The priest will come again. The tax will rise again. The world will turn, and your house will remain a dot on the ledger, another nameless roof in a city full of hunger. You tell yourself, tomorrow will come. You will meet it as you always have, not with hope, but with stubbornness, with the dry eyed knowledge that survival is not victory, only persistence. The cycle begins again, and you begin with it.